Hello and welcome to the Miraculous Lightworkers channel, your go-to place for all things about lightworkers and enlightenment. I'm your host Wendy, and today we are here to talk about what a lightworker is. So this is a really interesting topic because the phrase lightworker was coined, I'm gonna say in the 80s, and from my understanding, it was coined by the light worker by the name of Michael Meerdad. He has a church that he is the minister at over in Phoenix, or sorry, in Sedona, Arizona. Um, I have been fortunate enough to spend some time in his presence. He is a Course in Miracles teacher as well. Um, so when I was first coming into the course, I learned a bit from him, and I follow his videos. He puts out videos like every Friday. He does some spiritual insights, and they broadcast his Sunday services. Highly recommend looking into him if you don't know who he is. Um, there are so many different perspectives on what light workers are, and the terminology is used a little bit loosely. So let's discuss this a little bit. Um, there's a video that pops up close to my channel every time I search up the Lightworkers channel, the Miraculous Lightworkers channel, and it is a doctor who's, I think, in Seattle, and he's talking about what he believes Lightworkers to be. And he basically put all of the people who can be classified as Lightworkers, like who makes the classification, right, into the realm of medical professionals. While that is true that medical professionals are often light workers, a lot of medical professionals are not too. You have people on both sides of the spectrum, so to speak. There, um, wanting to dedicate your life to the higher good of all would definitely classify you as a light worker. Um, I would say that some medical practices, the people went in with intentions that were not exactly that. So classifying them as light workers is interesting because they wouldn't do that for themselves. They will consider themselves in a different classification, so to speak. So, I mean, if you were to ask most people who are, say, plastic surgeons, are you a light worker? They probably would not say yes. If you ask most medical professionals who are holistic doctors, who are, let's say, um, energy practitioners, people who perform massage or Reiki or hands off healing, those kind of people would definitely consider themselves light workers. But it doesn't stop there. Uh, People who are therapists can be light workers. Um, there's also a whole sort of unclassified group that I would consider light workers who they wouldn't term themselves that at all, that probably aren't even familiar with the term. A lot of teachers are light workers. They just have a mannerism about them, the way that they help their students puts them in that classification. Um, Anybody with or without a degree can be a light worker. The degree that I hold would not put me in the realm of a light worker if you were to ask the average person. But I know because I've been a lifelong learner and dedicated to spirituality, to understanding God, to wanting to uplift all of God's children, that raises me into that sphere of light workers. There's a lot of people out there who are unfamiliar with the terminology, but honestly, because of their very pure heart, it puts them into that realm. And it's more than okay to call yourself a light worker if you do not hold a degree or certification. There's been so many people throughout history. The greatest light worker of all time, Jesus, held no such classification as far as the world was concerned, right? Most people who considered them spiritual teachers throughout history existed in a time before, the little letters before your name meant anything. So there you go. There you have it. What does it take to be a light worker? It comes from intention and awareness. Knowing who you are and wanting to do what we call in Hawaii just to live pono, just to be righteous, makes you a light worker. If you live your life in a conscientious way where you are trying to do good and only good, do no harm anywhere, that puts you in that basket, so to speak. Um, what can you and what should you do as a light worker? It's a directive from the Holy Spirit, really. I would not be a light worker had I not come across the information that I have in my life and had a very strong drive from Spirit to want to be a gift to all of God's children. That's what puts me into that realm. So, even if you don't consider yourself a light worker, it's essentially what you're doing. If you bring more light into the world and you anchor it here in this now moment, you are working with light. And it's not an airy fairy concept. If you look into the scientifics of it, we are beings of light. We exist because light allows us to exist. And without it, we would have no existence. We came from a source which vibrates at an energy level that is similar to light and sound vibration. Okay, that's why light and sound are so healing, why they have such specific applications when it comes to repairing the cells and tissues of the body. It gets a little bit complex if you haven't looked into the, quantum mechanics and things like that. And even those things, I know quite a bit about them, but some of that can go right over my head. It gets very complicated. The creation of atoms in order to observe and transport them into a different place. You're talking about teleportation and things that are very sci-fi sounding, but through facilities like CERN and whatnot, we have created, witnessed, documented this kind of thing. So we live in such an exciting time where we can actually explain these things and it goes beyond superstition the way that it used to be. And so it creates more of that conviction where people understand what they're doing now. In the power of prayer, you are executing the power of sound vibration from your voice. And even if you do a silent prayer, intention is there. When you light a candle and you pray, and even if it's without, it's like you can do distance healing through the power of speaking to your creator through the power of the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is activated in you and is your go-between, right? It's what gives you access. At this moment, it seems like we're really getting to the point where there needs to be clarification on a lot of this, because what we're doing has actual observable effects in our world. It didn't used to be that way. So here we are at this really pivotal moment in history where we can see what it is that we're doing. We can, through the power of intention, light, and sound vibrations, heal people that aren't even present with us. That's pretty amazing. And I feel like this is just a really exciting time to be alive and to learn how to work with those modalities. If you have the intention at all to be a blessing to your brothers and sisters, to rise above the sort of preoccupation with the self, which is almost everybody's thing for a major portion of their life. Hardly anybody comes in and doesn't have that. That is all about learning to do self preservation and coming into such a state of wholeness and trying to perfect your soul at such a level that you're capable of actually making that sort of quantum leap over into the next state where spirit can trust you with the energy to do things like remote healing or healing in the present, here and now. Shifting vibrations, learning how to use your life force, your mana, to affect situations in such a way that our ancestors would have called it supernatural, but we have the technology to show what it is that we're doing now. Transmutation of the energy around us. So when you're looking out at the world around you now and you're seeing sort of a lot of these situations where you recognize the not truth of a situation. See, it gets a little complicated because some of these things we don't really have a syntax for yet. It's like, okay, I look out and I see what looks like something bad unfolding, something that we would term and judge as being bad. Recognizing if there's some way for us to be a healing force in the situation. As light workers, you want to help. It's a natural inclination. You can't look out there and feel like that's not mine, I don't care. That's sort of old paradigm stuff, but we're moving into a place in human consciousness where the pain of the collective is great enough. The awareness of the collective is great enough. We're getting to that collective consciousness where it's expanding and we are ascending, but we're starting to understand that the only way for us to truly ascend is if we bring people up with us, because that's raising the vibration, the energetic vibration, the measurable change in the actual electromagnetic frequencies that we're emitting and anchoring in and stabilizing in our environment. We're raising that up. The more that you do that, the more you go into the expansion and the ascension, it's harder to fall back. It's like you're graduating. And so once you graduate, for instance, you go through school, right? Once you've graduated from junior high, you don't go backwards. You don't need to go back to the elementary education. Once you've graduated from high school, you would never go back and repeat it. You're moving on to college. Here we are at this place in time where we have access to all of this information and we're being able to anchor more of it in and comprehend more of it and have that shared experience where it's not just scientists that are understanding this, but the average person with the will to learn can rise with everybody else. It doesn't take being, an Ivy League graduated with honors kind of person to be able to understand, conceive, and honestly, here's the thing about it. Getting to that level where you have all the accolades and everything, you start to feel a bit accomplished, perhaps proud, maybe even conceited about feeling like you are above the rest of your, you know, peer group. That's just it's just stroking the ego essentially. If you understand that we're all here to bring each other up, then it stops being such a competitive sort of show of might. When you flash your credentials, you start to realize this is what I did it for. I didn't do it just so I can show off, but I did it so that I could bring the collective up. Of course, not everybody has that intention. Some people like, lording it over other people, that they are smarter. But in Hawaii, we have a really interesting paradigm on this. Okay, we're on a very powerful ley line here, and I think that has a lot to do with why we anchor so much of this aloha spirit. But there's a terminology that says, I don't care how much you know. I want to know how much you care. And that is very like light worker code right there. You can know everything in the world, but if you don't care about your brothers and sisters in a place like this that has a very high vibration, it doesn't matter. We all rise together or we all fall together. And we really don't have a lot of time to waste at this moment. Just because, some of the people, most of the people listening to this probably are living pretty well and having a good experience. That's not how life is for most of the planet, though. And if you want to see things improve, the gift of your light is required. It's desired and required. And here we are at this opportune moment in human history where we can share this freely on platforms like YouTube, for instance. We can do it on social media. Um, there's so many ways that we can share this. This has never been the case before, and I'm constantly blown away by this. The fact that we're now in this, as we move forward through the ages, now we're moving from a place where everything was sort of like greed and desire based. Gotta get, all about that cheddar, right? Doing that thing. Now we're moving up to a place where there's a lot of mind energy anchoring things in. We're working with ideas. We're understanding new concepts. We have access to libraries of information. We're literate, so we can receive it, we can retain it, we can use it for the highest good. This is what Spirit really wants me to do with my time and energy and to release right now. Is if you have anything, a gift of Spirit that you can share with someone else, now is the time. There's no time left to wait, um, and watch and see how things are going. Things are not going well on our planet. They will, but that it's the power of our will to create that, to anchor in heaven on earth, to come into our Christ consciousness where we are willing to be the change we wish to see, you know, to rise into the fullness of Spirit to help advance humanity. We're at a very critical juncture. And I think people have gotten used to the fact that, at the push of a button, we could pretty much decimate our entire species and destroy our planet. And that's now acceptable. But this was not so much the case just a few decades ago. Um, it's only been even in my father's lifetime where they actually were doing the nuclear bomb drills, hiding under their desks in school, being trained to try and save their lives. These children, terrified. We don't do that anymore, but that traumatized a whole generation of kids where suddenly there was an awareness that humanity had the capacity, perhaps even the will, even in the face of mutual destruction, mutual assured destruction, to end life as we know it on this planet. It seems so callous, but it's not gone. We're we're in the midst of Star Wars, where they're using the light for some very dark things. They're using the power of the light that a light worker can use, but for the nefarious purposes. They have, the use of light in the satellites with lasers and whatnot that can actually destroy other satellites. I mean, we're getting into some really, stuff that seemed very sci-fi in the last couple decades is now it's in the realm of reality. This seems very Hollywood, but this is very real. And we're looking at a very different future for humanity in the next couple decades here. We're looking at, self-driving vehicles and things that seemed like they were just super out there. Like that's never going to happen, right? We're there. The future is now. It's just, there's a lot of suppressed technology, so it makes it look as if we're not as far as we really are. But, they're coming out with the Tesla vehicles and stuff like this. Again, it's the power of electromagnetic frequency that charges these vehicles up, which is it's still working on those same principles of light and sound vibrations. Tesla was really a very psychic person. He was a light worker. That's essentially what he did. He learned to harness electricity in the form of lightning and things like this, and revolutionized the way that everything in our world functions. But again, this is one of these things that seems to go fairly unnoticed. As a light worker, if you don't know what the life of Tesla was about, it's imperative that you learn. We live in the age of light now where I can sit here and record late night sessions on YouTube to release this information that I have been gifted to the world. That has a lot to do with not so much Edison as Tesla, but we would attribute it to Edison. But again, light, harnessing light and electricity, powering it through these cables to where I can sit here and broadcast into the into the celestial sphere of things, right? Into the atmosphere, my voice, my sound vibration with this light. It's really remarkable what we're capable of doing right now by means of the vibration of sound, the vibration of light, and intention. We live in such a remarkable time. And it's really, I hope that you will spend time thinking about this if you consider yourself a light worker. And even if you don't, what you can do with that. And I hope that the light within you is activated. I hope the sound vibration within you is activated. I hope all the energy centers within you are coming alive and awakened so that you can see the potential and release it and help your brothers and sisters, because the grand awakening that has been foretold is upon us. The prophecies are from all over the world. And here we are in this amazing moment that is it's remarkable to witness, but it's not supposed to be about just witnessing. It's how do I participate? What am I being asked to do? And that can be as simple as I heal people's bodies so that they can function at their optimum best. That's what the medical light workers do. Those professionals do that. It's almost like we need a classification of the different kinds of light workers, because there's light workers who work with bringing enlightenment to the mind, therapists and teachers. Um, some of them are just dealing with young people, and because they share their light with young people as they're teaching, they're helping to raise up the next generation in a way that is for their highest good, that helps their spirits feel safe so that they will rise into consciousness much faster than our generations. Um, you have people like me who are simply sharing the wisdom that we've been given, sharing the peace, sharing the conviction that Spirit is putting in us to help bring everybody into this field of unification where we're sort of on this, you know, on the same page here. Look, we have a common interest in preserving peace and joy on our planet. That's really what being a light worker comes down to. It's really very simple. You could be a light worker without anything more than the intention to do good in the world. And that puts you into that place where it's like you're like on a supercharged karma where you're initiating the flow. That's what makes human beings so magical. We can alchemize what is just, basic potential into action that is healing. We can use what we are, basic elements, and turn it into gold. That is alchemy. So I thank you so much for coming and joining me today as I discuss with you a bit about what it means to be a light worker. Love to hear your comments and like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think of all this. And join us next time as we come together to uplift, enlighten, and ascend. Bye now.